Welcome to the fourth week of Starring Stephanie Campos. This is for the week of February 23rd through March 1st, 2026. This week, I'm going to start off by telling you a ghost story. This is one of my most vivid encounters with spirit, an apparition, a ghost, whatever you want to call it. So many years ago, I went to a violin conference in Georgia because I used to work for a magazine about violins and cellos. That's another story for another time. I actually traveled to China and interviewed Yo-Yo Ma, which was a career highlight outside of course, being a magical, mystical person. Anywho, so I'm in Georgia, and one of the main events takes place at this very old haunted hotel from the 1800s. And the owners of this hotel are like, yeah, it's haunted. Everybody knows it's haunted. We all encounter or have had some sort of interaction with the spirits that live here or are attached to this place. And they knew that I also practiced astrology and am a mystical person. So while me and my coworker were there for this event at this exhibit, a few of the people who worked there actually came up to me and they were like, what are you feeling? What are you noticing? And we were downstairs and I was like, OMG, I'm noticing a lot, obviously. And then they're like, why don't we take you upstairs where most of the activity happens? And I was like, okay. Immediately should have said no, but didn't. So we get upstairs, I look to the end of this hallway, it's pitch black, and immediately I feel someone. And I'm just kind of standing there, unable to move, and they're like, no, come in here, come in this room. So reluctantly, I take a couple steps, I go into this other room, still pretty stunned by the energy of what I'm feeling. It's rare for me to see a spirit. It has happened many, many times in my life, but more so, I walk into a space and energetically, I feel someone's presence or energy. And that's what I was feeling at the end of the hallway. I was like, whoa, we're not alone. But I get into this room and I turn around and I see a full formed apparition in front of me. Mind you, it's still daytime. The sun has not gone down. That's how haunted this place was. And this entity then proceeds to move through my body. It was like a mist, and I wasn't the only one who saw it. A couple other people in the room actually gasped. And mind you, I'm here on a work trip, so there are other people there who are not related to the magazine that I work for, who are a part of this classical music community, who are very not spiritual, right? And I scream, oh, fuck, at the top of my lungs and immediately run down the stairs. After this happens, I feel my right ear completely shut. It feels like it's clogged. And I'm not going to lie, I've had entities and spirits attached to me many times in my life. And every single time that this happens, I feel this like heaviness in my right ear specifically. And that's how I know I'm not alone, but someone has attached to me. So I immediately go down to the kitchen and I ask some people who work there, I'm like, do you have any salt? I end up going outside and like casting a circle of salt around me and petitioning and praying that whoever is attached to me, I ask that they leave, but it's not working. And we're far from over with this event. So there's this huge dinner planned with all of these violin makers, all of these luthiers, probably some players, other important people. We're all supposed to mingle. I already suck at mingling, but now I have a dead person attached to my body. You know what I mean? It's a little more difficult. And I asked Spirit, I was like, okay, as we're on our way to the restaurant, I said, please give me a sign that someone is attached to me, that I'm just not imagining this. You know, I need a clear sign that this is what I'm dealing with. And one of the owners of the hotel was driving us to the restaurant. And on the way there, randomly, she goes, hey, Stephanie, how are you doing? You didn't leave with anyone, did you? I immediately wanted to puke everywhere because I was like, okay, give me a louder sign that someone is literally attached to me and I am literally leaving with somebody, right? Anyways, I end up suffering through this dinner and I'm like totally different. My coworker is like, you have someone attached to you. Like, you are not the same Stephanie that you normally are. You seem totally off. What are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. But I push through, and later on we end up back at our hotel and I'm terrified. I'm like, okay, now I'm just supposed to go to sleep. I still feel like my right ear is closed up. I still feel this presence and this heaviness on the right side of my body. But I'm like, you know what? I got to try to go to sleep. But I'm not a fool. So I kept all the lights on. I was like, I can't turn the lights off. So I end up falling asleep for maybe a couple of hours, but then I wake up and before I open my eyes, I just feel like someone is sitting next to me. And I open my eyes and remind you that the lights are on. I notice that the pillowcase starts to indent, like it is fully fluffy. And then as I'm looking at it and open my eyes, it looks like someone has placed their head on the pillowcase and there's an indentation of where someone's head is. Because that special spirit is still attached to me, right? Making themselves at home in my hotel room. So obviously I couldn't sleep. I was petrified and terrified, and I stayed awake for the rest of the night. And the next morning I went to the closest witchy shop possible and I bought a ton of crystals and a couple different items to try to cleanse myself and exorcise this spirit from my body. After many different attempts, it did work. I felt my right ear pop and open up, and I felt a lightness on the right side of my body again. It's super spooky, you know what I mean? And a couple of weeks later, I was talking with some of the owners of that hotel, and they said that there's been stories of this man ghost who used to ride the train and stay at this hotel, and he would meet different women at this hotel and then leave again on the train. So maybe it was him. It would make sense that he attached to me and thought it fine to follow me back to my hotel. I don't really know. And thankfully that spirit is long gone and I'll never have to know. But why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because all of this happened to me and I had this experience because I did not have a regular and consistent psychic protection, cleansing, and grounding routine. If you are someone who is energetically sensitive and open and psychic, and you have these paranormal experiences, or you just have, this extra strong connection with your psychic abilities and your intuition, but you don't have the framework or the structure for it to be consistent, or you don't know how to work with it in a productive or healthy way or a constructive way, that is why I'm teaching my class Grimoire, which is a 12-week group mentorship that covers psychic development, spiritual contact, communication, healing your own ancestral line, tarot. It's the only place where I actually teach astrology. There are 4 weeks dedicated to astrology in general, and so much more. So if you have any interest in the metaphysical and diving deeper with your own intuition and building a relationship with your special psychic gifts and abilities, I hope to see you there. This week's episode is a little late because I filmed everything yesterday, but I neglected to talk about Linda Davis. On February 20th in Savannah, Georgia, Linda Davis, 52-year-old woman who teaches disabled children, struck and killed less than half a mile from the school where she teaches because of ICE. ICE was, quote unquote, in pursuit of a man who had no criminal history, which then resulted in a high-speed chase in which Linda Davis was struck. She was then left in her car for 25 minutes. Not a single ICE agent came to check on her. She was pinned in her car. Nobody tried to remove her, and she died. She was murdered because of ICE. Black women's stories and experiences are often ignored or belittled or suppressed. And that's why I didn't want to release this episode without elevating what happened to Linda Davis. I'll be linking anything that I can find in terms of a GoFundMe or a way to support Linda Davis's family in the show notes. And if you have any specific links or tips, please reach out to me via email. And in waking up this morning, I also woke up to the news of what happened at the BAFTAs. When Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were presenting an award, and a white man in the audience with Tourette syndrome screamed the N-word. I don't know much about Tourette syndrome, and that's really not what I'm here to talk about. But what I do want to name is that this had an effect, that this is triggering and painful, that that word is tied to centuries of torture and violence and hate. And that the BAFTAs weren't live streamed. They were able to edit out when director Akinola Davies Jr. said Free Palestine in his speech, but they did not edit out that racial slur. And I want to invite us to just use our critical thinking skills here. Why is that? Perhaps it's because they want to normalize and desensitize us to hate crimes, hate speech, and abuse against Black people. Perhaps it's because they have a racist editorial board. I'd say probably yes to both of those things, and that they're worth reflecting on. And all I know is that we need to talk about this, white people in particular. We need to talk about this with our families, with people in our communities, because racism is alive and well. And I want to use every ounce of my power and my privilege to bring about change, strive for justice and equality, to create and build a world in which we are all free. Okay, I have two important news stories that I want to elevate this week. They both took place on February 18th. Before I dive into them, I want to give a trigger warning. These two stories involve hate crime and police violence and execution and state murder, as well as anti-Blackness. If you're a person of the global majority, feel free to skip over this part. I want to bring attention to these two news stories because the mainstream media is not covering them, and because I know I have a lot of white followers. And we are never going to build and create the world in which we all deserve, in which we are all free, if we remain complicit and silent about the continued structures of white supremacy and oppression and harm and violence and murder that continue to this very day. On February 18th, Kyle Basinia, a 21-year-old college student, was found lynched in Fair Oaks Park, Georgia. Now, the local police departments are reporting a different story, one of no foul play, one of suicide. But that's simply not true. This was a lynching, and it deserves attention, and Kyle deserves justice. Some of you may remember Trey Reed last year, who was also found lynched. Civil rights organization Julian just recently released a new report titled Crimson Record, which details and documents over 70 suspected modern-day lynchings in the U.S. South between the year 2000 and 2005. We're living in a time where our president and the administration are openly racist, creating the conditions for other racist people to engage in heinous executions and murders and racist acts out in the open. I've looked to see if there's a GoFundMe for Kyle. I haven't found one just yet, but when I do, I will link it in the show notes, and I will include an update when I receive one. If you know of one, please email me. There is a form to fill out on my website. Now, my other story has to do with police violence, brutality, and execution. 32-year-old Daquan Johnson was riding his bike when Grand Rapids police chased him, unleashed a dog on him that had pinned him to the ground. As he was pinned to the ground, they shot him, execution style, 3 to 4 times in the back. I've looked for a GoFundMe for Daquan and I haven't found one just yet, but if you have any resources or tips, please send them my way so I can link them in future show notes. If you have not seen the documentary 13th, please consider viewing it. It's available on Netflix, and it illustrates how the prison industrial complex has essentially rebranded modern slavery. These executions are not by accident. They are racist and they are by design. And these racist police get off without ever having justice served. And the final item before we get into next week's astrology is Sonny Burton. You can still help him get clemency and ask Governor Ivey grant him clemency. Sonny Burton is a 75-year-old father, grandfather who literally didn't kill anyone. And the state of Alabama knows that. He actually wasn't even in the building when Doug Battle was killed. Triggerman, the person who did kill Doug Battle, actually had his sentence reduced to prison and life without parole, yet Sonny remains on death row. The state of Alabama is planning to suffocate Sonny on March 12th, and we can stop it by contacting Governor Ivey and demanding that she grant Sonny clemency. There's a link in the show notes to sign a petition. You can also call Governor Ivey. It takes 20 seconds of your life. I'm calling every single day until March 12th. It is literally the very least we can do, and it can save a life. All right, this week's astrology. We are in the first quarter moon phase, and I would say that this is an important moment during the week. It's not like the BFD, the biggest freaking deal, but it is important to acknowledge. On Tuesday, February 24th, we have a first quarter moon in Gemini. The moon is in Gemini, the sun is in Pisces, and this brings us back to the new moon solar eclipse that took place in Aquarius on February 17th. So this is a point of action, a crisis point, a moment to pivot and to bring some of your ideas and intentions into real life, or to take the next step with a plan or a conversation or anything that was seeded under that eclipse. So this might be a busy day where there is some sort of fated or destined turning point or development that unfolds in your life. So pay attention to clues, themes, topics, conversations that are a main focus for you on the 24th. Now, the worst astrology of the week and the best astrology of the week happen on the same day. Friday, February 27th, we have Mars in Aquarius forming a square with Uranus in Taurus. And this is the worst astrology of the week. Mars is a planet of war, anger, action, motivation, severing, separation. Uranus is a planet of destabilization, of unexpected events, of explosive reactions, of liberation and revolution as well, and innovation. When these two planets form a hard aspect, it can be very volatile. Emotionally, personally, and collectively, we might see shocking news stories. We might experience surprising interactions with other people. Maybe there is a sudden separation, or people are feeling just reactive today, yourself included. It's easy to pick fights. And these two planets are coming through in fixed signs, which means that the fights that we start can have lasting consequences. Now, this face-off is taking place at 27 degrees. So if you have any planets or placements around 27 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you're going to feel this the most intensely and the most personally. This is also going to bring us back to February 5th, February 8th, and February 15th, when Mercury met with Uranus, when Venus met with Uranus, and when the sun met with Uranus. So similar themes and topics from those days and time periods are resurfacing, except now in a more abrupt and intense and chaotic way. This energy can also cause us to be a little bit more accident prone. So just move a little slower throughout your day. I always stub my toes or end up with a bruise or cut my finger while I'm cooking or something of the sort. So it's not like you have to stay inside and hide, but just keep in mind that the energy is a little bit more rushed and chaotic. I go way more in depth about this aspect in my daily horoscope podcast. You can gain instant access to 7 episodes of your daily horoscope for the week ahead over on my Patreon, where I have individual horoscopes by zodiac sign and rising sign. There's a link in the show notes. Okay, the best astrology of the day. Also on Friday, February 27th, Venus in Pisces is forming a conjunction with Mercury Retrograde in Pisces. This is taking place at 22 degrees. If you have any planets or placements around 22 degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, you're the main characters. Venus is a planet of connection, relationships, creativity, pleasure, and joy, embodiment. And Mercury is a planet of communication, the mind, friendships, alliances, and also in traditional astrology, commerce and how we spend our money. When Venus and Mercury come together, typically it coincides with a thoughtful conversation, learning lucky news, feeling supported for your ideas, focusing your mental energy on something creative, or even your personal values, embodying your personal values in an important way, or telling someone you love them, or feeling a sense of gratitude, or taking action on a creative idea. Normally, it's very positive manifestations. Now, Mercury is retrograde, so could you hear from someone from your past? Absolutely. Could you pick up an old idea or project that you used to enjoy and return to it? Definitely. This is going to be a moment that it's nice to have this kind of energy in the backdrop of the day, given the intensity of Mars square Uranus. And this can be a moment where you feel a sense of reprieve, or you are just feeling grateful for the things that are going right in your life, or the people who show up for you when you need it most. Now, one thing I love about this aspect, especially because Mercury is retrograde, this is a powerful time to reflect on how you spend your money, Mercury, and is it aligned with your values, your personal values and your beliefs and what matters to you, Venus. So this can be a great time to do a line item, get an Excel sheet, what are all your subscriptions? What are all your monthly bills? What major companies are you paying on a monthly basis? And is there a way in which you can find a different company for at least one or two of those items where they aren't these massive billionaires who are trying to control the news and the media and the algorithms, destroying Earth and hoarding resources? Are there alternative companies that you can turn to give your money to? Because in capitalism, money is our source of power. I recently left AT&T. I've been with AT&T for 20 years and I was like, nope, goodbye. You have contracts with ICE. That makes me want to vomit. And that's just one simple example of what you can do. But I do think this energy is beautiful. It is a welcome moment and it's a great time to speak from your heart. This week, we have the Five of Pentacles, the Four of Swords, and the Fool. And for those of you who are looking at my Five of Pentacles, my puppy ate it. I'm in love with this deck so much. I've had it for so long that I just decided to try to fix it on my own. I considered it a good omen. I was like, yeah, destroy that card. Okay, anywho, this spread shows me that there has been this sense of lack or worry or isolation or just big feelings of being disappointed in some way, of dealing with scarcity and feeling lack, whether it's in love or in your career or in your personal life in some way. And the Four of Swords wants you to hit the brakes, wants you to pause, wants you to rest. Overusing your mind, running through every single situation and scenario is going to drain you of your most precious resource, your energy. And it's not going to help you or anyone else. And so this is really a time to pause, to rest, and to even meditate or do some other type of mental journey to kind of relax your subconscious and your mind. That is what the Four of Swords is asking of us. And it's on brand because Mercury goes retrograde this week. Oh my God, how did I not cover that? That's the BFD of the week. On February 25th, Mercury goes retrograde at 22 degrees of Pisces. Put a pin in that. Okay, we'll come back to it after the reading. Fortunately, the last card of this week is the Fool. And this card is literally the first card in the tarot. It is a fresh start. It gives us this sense of encouragement and it gives us this ability to try and fail and to get back up and try again. The Fool isn't scared of failing. The Fool is scared of never starting. And so this is actually a very optimistic card that assures us that when we listen to our body, when we choose to rest despite what the world around us tells us to keep going, to keep trying to make progress, to run ourselves down emotionally and physically, but when we really do listen to our body and rest and turn inward to seek guidance and answers and recharge, that is when we are going to be met with a new opportunity. Oh my God, Mercury retrograde, worst astrologer ever. How could I ever forget? I guess that's very Mercury retrograde that I almost forgot. But yeah, basically Mercury is going retrograde this week. So hold on to your horses. If you're a Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, especially around 22 degrees, you'll feel this retrograde the most intensely. And this is going to bring us back to Mercury retrograde last year, last March, early April. We had a retrograde in the sign of Pisces. We had so much other BS going on in the sky at that time. So if you're like panicking, don't worry. We were always also coming out of a Mars retrograde. We had a Venus retrograde. So it's not going to be exactly the same, but similar themes and topics may reemerge. When Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, it's really easy to assume what other people are thinking and for us to rely on our psychic instincts and to make assumptions about other people. So this is an important time to really communicate, don't just assume what someone else is thinking or feeling. Even if you are very psychic, it's important for you to use your words when you can. Mercury going retrograde in a Jupiter sign, this might also be a period of time where you are reflecting on your beliefs, on what is just, on your personal goals, on your relationship with your own spiritual practices. Are there ways in which you can show up differently that you are reflecting on and retooling so you are actually embodying some of your beliefs and your personal values. And you are actually living a life that is going to magnetically draw your dreams to you in a more natural and aligned way. Are some of your goals misaligned? Could you benefit from really going back to the drawing board and thinking about what is fulfilling, what is meaningful for me? Those are some topics that might come up while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces as well. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you want instant access to your daily horoscopes, you can tune into my daily horoscope podcast over on Patreon. I hope to see some of you in my next iteration of Grimoire. I will be accepting 15 students total. There is a payment plan available, and there's a link in the show notes to learn more. Alrighty, thanks so much, and see you tomorrow.